Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with my co-host Alex Hashlow. This week, a huge week for Democrats, winning just about everything on Tuesday. In fact, no, it's not just about, they won everything on Tuesday. Let's get into what that means. To do that, we welcome back a very dear and special guest to both Alex and myself, our friend Senator Doug Jones, who you know made history in Alabama, winning as the first Democratic senator in 25 years. And I just want to say that we saw something similar, and we'll talk about it last night in Georgia. But when you look at how Democrats won, especially in places like Georgia, we want to ask him about what it all means and what Democrats can learn moving forward. Senator, welcome.
No, it's great to be with you guys. I appreciate it. I always like reminiscing about 2017. What a special run that was and special night.
And the senator's used to me flubbing, and so is Alex. So, Alex, where do you want to get started?
Oh man, well, the interesting thing was, and this is not so much a reminisce about 2017. I mean, it's kind of what we saw in a lot of places on Tuesday night. And we'll get to Georgia and Mississippi, but Trippi, overall, I know you said in the intro, won just about everywhere, but what's your take overall? Anything surprise you, or was this just a shellacking?
No, it was a shellacking, but it did remind me, and this is not, just to go back to reminiscing about 2017, but Doug did win the first time in Alabama in 25 years for a Democrat. And when you saw in Georgia, two candidates for Democrats for Public Service Commissioner defeated two Republicans, and they won for the first time. The first time non-federal Democrat had won a non-federal state office in the state of Georgia, going back to like 2000, the year 2000, 2001. So I just think it was the same kind of thing where we saw not just, in the top races that everybody was paying attention to in New Jersey and in Virginia, New York City, but in places like Georgia, they sort of echoed of Doug's win in 2017, I think, in terms of what last night meant to the energy in the party.
Joe, I totally agree with that. As my wife Louise and I were watching those returns, we couldn't help but go back to 2017. And if you remember that year, the first real hint that there was something special going on was how close Jon Ossoff came to winning a congressional seat in Georgia. And there was a lot of national intention and that sort of thing. And then you move in. And in November of 2017, our election was in December, but in November, you had Ralph Northam win in Virginia, you had Phil Murphy win in New Jersey, and those were big wins, but they were kind of expected wins, and people were looking at it. But it helped us a little bit, more people engage and do some things that really brought it home, and that win in 2017, I think, was like the wins we saw today. It just added rocket fuel to going into the midterms. And this wasn't a shellacking, guys. This was, Alex, you will appreciate as much as anybody, this was a total domination the way some of my Alabama football teams have done in the past. It was total domination from top to bottom.
Yeah, this wasn't close. This wasn't the 2023 Rose Bowl. It wasn't even the 2024, I don't know, the ReliaQuest or whatever the hell that one was, where Alabama lost both close games to Michigan. But I think it was more those were Nick Saban wins.
Yeah, it was more like a couple of the other Michigan games that were replayed with total domination. It was more like those.
Well, no, but this thing was, it was, and look, California, Prop 50, to just body check the Texas power grab for 5 seats mid-census. 64% of the state of California voted in support of that. But then you go all the way over to Maine, where Prop 1, and which was a Republican MAGA bill proposition to literally require photo ID to vote, shut down the number of drop boxes, and strict restrictions on absentee voting. All of it designed to stop people from voting. or discourage them. And the state of Maine, 64%, just mirroring California, voted no. We don't want that. I mean, so this goes beyond the victories of and then Spanberger winning by 15 points in Virginia, massive. That was historic, winning at least as we count. Maybe Alex has a better count or a more recent one, but last time I checked,
plus,
64 out of 100 assembly delegate seats that were won.
That's a 13-seat flip at least. Yeah.
Yeah, and that changes it's a trifecta in Virginia.
Here's one thing, and Joe,
governors.
I'm glad you mentioned all three states, but I just want to point out the number that really stood out to me. And I keep hearing things about, oh, when do we move on from Trump? What happened last year? Was it a realignment year? What's going on? No. Here, if you look at Virginia, Spanberger won by about 15 points, 57-42. You want to guess what exit polling had Trump's approval rating? 56-41, 15 points. In New Jersey, Mickey Sherrill won by something like 13. It was 56-43 at the time of our recording. Trump approval, 55-43, 12 points. And in California, Joe, I'm glad you mentioned how big that one was. That was, I think, a 29-point win, 63-34. No, that was Trump's approval, but it was the same number, minus 28. So my point is, in a lot of these places, and by the way, and I know pre-show, the Senator and I were talking a little bit about some of the other races in Virginia, you just saw this as a just total repudiation about Trump, and there is no reason to suggest that that's going to stop anytime soon.
I agree. And look, even across the South, here in Alabama, there is not just a recognition of that with those big numbers, but you can just feel it. I mean, you can feel it that there are just people that said, no, 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 we didn't vote for that. We didn't vote for we are going to change this direction. The size of the defeats were staggering. I mean, they really were amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned about the approval rating, Alex, because a lot of people thought that it wouldn't be that way, especially when you're seeing, polling that showed it being closer and closer, which, by the way, Joe, just proves to me that head-to-head polling doesn't mean a damn thing anymore. Messages maybe, approval ratings maybe, but head-to-head polling that was this off this time you just have to move that in a different way. But it has motivated so many people, I think, across the country, including people who were kind of on the sidelines about, well, should I run? Should I not run? I know it's going to be close. I probably can't win in areas in the South and all, but it is motivating people now to say, there's something out there. There's something special going on.
Yeah, and Mississippi picked up 3 legislative seats, defeating 2 Republican incumbent state senators, if I got that right. But I do know I got this right, that it for the first time in 13 years, the Republicans have lost their supermajority in the state Senate in Mississippi. That happened on Tuesday as well. So it's happening. I mean, these victories, that's Georgia, Mississippi, and then you look at Virginia, which I just love that Trump keeps saying it's a blue state when the governor's a Republican, incumbent governor's a Republican, and they have all 3 statewide offices currently. So it's just, and they just all got swept out. But, there's 2 numbers and then I'd like to get your take, Doug, but the interesting thing is, as you look through the 16, even 2020 and 2024 elections, when you looked at the people who said they were disappointed or angry, with what was going on in the country, those were the people that Donald Trump tapped into. I mean, that was the anger that he fed. What was fascinating about Tuesday night was that the exit asked you whether you were enthusiastic about where the country was going, you thought it was going in the right direction, or you were disappointed or angry. And what's fascinating is disappointed or angry was 65% of the people who voted were disappointed and angry. And in New Jersey, Mikey got 77% of those people, and Spamberger got 80% of them. In a lot of ways, it's almost a patriotic populism, where the populism is now, yeah, I've got anger, but I want to do something about it. And with the positive policies that they were pushing about affordability and other things, I think you're starting to see that disappointment and anger is working the other way now. It's towards what MAGA and Trump have been doing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What I'm seeing and what I think I hear you saying is anger is expanding. Okay. The folks that were angry when they voted in 2024, a lot of them are still angry, because I did see some numbers that a lot of the rural voters and things like that, non-college educated, still voted for the Republican slates. But the anger that they had in 24 is still there. But it's also now going and expanding into the independents, the moderates, the Democrats. Everybody is everybody's just pissed off right now, and it shows. It absolutely shows. And I think that all of these candidates, especially Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, were able to tap into that, but they did it in a very civil way. They weren't bomb throwers. They weren't calling people names. They didn't do the kind of crap that you see Trump and his minions do. They did it in a way that tapped into that with policies and things that were saying, we are going to do everything we can to make your life better. We get it. We understand it. And I think Mandami did that in a different way in New York, I think, but it was still the same thing. It was a variation of the same theme of tapping into that anger.
And on concentrating on affordability and actually on policies that were going to actually impact people instead of just calling people names, which I think again plays. Here's the interesting thing: independence, and we've been talking about this on the podcast for quite a while. Since, gosh, about 2 months ago, you started to see independents like radically moving away from Trump and moving towards Democrats. But we had our first glimpse of it, with real votes. Exit in Virginia, Spanberger received 60% of the vote of independents, and Mikey Sherrill got 57% of them. So these are unheard of, because normally you get like a 52-48 shift either way for the two parties, and that pushes Trump just over in 2024, or Biden just over in 2020. But when you start seeing a party, both nominees getting 60 and 57%, that tells you something. And also, everybody, the pundits and the talking heads on cable talk about how the Democratic brand's toxic and all that stuff. The fact is, election night on Tuesday, the Democrats had a better favorability rating and ratio than Republicans did, and more importantly, and this I think is a fascinating number, literally they asked, which party you favorable to. If you were not favorable to either party, if you had a high negative on both parties, how did you vote? In Virginia, 77% of them voted for Spanberger. They don't like either party, but they voted for Spanberger. In New Jersey, 81% of those, quote, double haters voted for Mikey Sherrill. And so even in New York City, by the way, for Mandami, 65% of the double haters voted for him. So, voted for Democratic Socialists.
Right.
Because they were so what I'm saying is that would have been, I think, a number that would have accrued to Trump in earlier, other cycles. But it's clearly, I think, something, particularly if I'm as a Republican office holder in the Senate or the House right now, those last two numbers on what independents did and what the double haters did last night would give me some heartburn, looking at my own, prospects. With some of the candidates, we got great candidates that are out there. Hopefully we can recruit a few other good candidates in some of these states where we don't have a candidate yet, Doug.
Yeah, and as partisan as the country is, I think since the inauguration, the independent bloc has grown. I really think it's grown. I don't think Democrats have really lost anything, but I do think the independent bloc has grown with some more moderate Republicans saying no more.
Yeah,
Just no, I just can't do this.
well, we in it just to make you so right about that in New Jersey, 53% of the electorate, 53% of the electorate identified as independent. 53, and she got 57% of those people. So like if you're getting 90% of Democrats and 57% of 53% of the electorate, it's shows you how you get the 13-point gap there.
It's
so
domination.
I think you're right.
It's domination.
Yeah.
Well, then
it
you add up some other numbers, and I have a few more from Jersey and Virginia, but you zoom out a little bit. You look at the generic congressional for next year, which most places have around 50-42. I'm going to say +8. And Joe, I want you to dig into why here. But if you start adding up that with a forced choice, it's 50-42, Trump disapproval where he is, all of a sudden, and what you just said with independence, that 8%, and I know we got into this on a podcast with Reed earlier this week, that 8% that's not in the 50-42, they ain't breaking towards the 42.
No, they're the double haters. They're the people who are, I'm not, right now it's 50-42, that 8 points. They're people who are in that group that last night, at least on Tuesday, broke 7 or 8-1 for the Democrats when they were forced. When they got into the booth and made that choice, that's where they went. And so that's why I think the generic vote is going to be far worse for the Republicans. That's why I think they should have huge heartburn, this double hater break that happened, and the independents. I've never seen anything like that. And so, I've seen, break 55-45, something like that, but I've never seen 8-1 or 8-2.
Joe, let me ask y'all what you think about this, because I've got some ideas. But we saw the California proposition that won just as big as Spanberger and Mikey. To me, this election, not just that in California, but how everything happened in Mississippi, how it happened in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, in New Jersey. Is that going to send a message to other states, to the traditional red states that are looking at some of these gerrymandering, to say, guys, you can do it, but by God, you'll pay for it if you do it? Because I really, personally, I think that could be a message that Democrats could exploit next year in the midterms, to say, okay, they did this, they didn't stop. We need to teach them a lesson. We need to get our folks out there, and it may backfire.
No, I think that's one reason it could backfire. But the other one, looking at last night, when you look at these margins, look, Virginia is not a plus 15 Democratic state.
Not at all.
New Jersey, no way. It's a plus 13. So if you're now trying to expand districts, even in Texas, where you're taking, you're reducing the number of Democrats and Republicans in every district so you can make more Republican seats, but they're not going to be.
Where are you going to go?
They're not going to have huge margins. That means like you're making a lot more districts that are a lot more competitive. You think you're doing it because, well, that'll be outside the usual 5 points of competitive margin. But we just showed last night or Tuesday that Democrats performed way outside that margin. So you can end up losing like a bunch of states. Yeah, a bunch of seats.
And you talk about Texas. You look at Latino performance on Tuesday night. And one of the big reasons that the map in Texas is the way it is, or the way they want it to be, is they were counting on this kind of realignment shift among non-college whites, among Latinos in general, even among Black voters. But if you go down the line, non-college whites in Virginia, I think it was 84% for Spanberger, Mickey Sherrill 76 in Virginia. I'm sorry, in New Jersey, I just have too many numbers out. But you start adding these up, Latinos 2/3 at minimum in each state.
Latinos came home both places, 67% for Spanberger, 68% for Mikey. the black vote was well over 90% in both those states. I mean, all these places where he made inroads, and including that both of them, actually, and Mandami too. It's Mandami too. Spanberger got 47% of the white vote. Mikey got 47% of the white vote. Mandami got 46% of the white vote. So what you saw was a lot. And by the way, with young people, and this I think is pretty interesting. 18 to 29, Spanberger won 70% of that vote. Mikey won 68% of that vote. 19.
That's a crazy number.
And Mandami won 78%. So I mean, yeah, they did a little bit less with those young people
they're in the
than
neighborhood.
Mandami did, but
right,
70%, 68%. Those a lot of white young men in there, 18 to 29, that came home, and so it just shows the erosion of groups that Trump did expand, particularly in places like New Jersey and the Latino community in New Jersey. That's how he made it close in 2024 there against Harris. She only won by 7 points, but you got Mikey winning by 13. That is because all those voters have moved away from Trump and MAGA.
To Doug's question earlier about if you're thinking about next year, if you're thinking about the types of candidates, to me, it's also, you really can't just run a generic do nothing, hope that they've got an R next to their name and try to just coast on that. Voters have made it really clear that you need to be able to actually take action on the things that they care about, which are affordability, prices, healthcare, subsidies, et cetera. So if you're one of those kind of sitting pretty, hoping you're just going to coast on your Trump support, even if you're in a redder state, I think this is kind of a shockwave, and it's a big watch out, because you are part of the bathwater that they are trying to throw out right now.
Now, Alex, are you telling me that voters are going to be looking at people's records or the lack of a record to actually help base their opinion?
At their grocery bills. And they are going to look at their gas bills and their rent. And that is what they are going to look at. And they're going to fire whoever's in charge.
Now, I don't disagree with that. I think that there's a lot of that coming home.
That authenticity mattered a lot. I think Mandami particularly. I mean, all of them. I think Mikey, and when you look at all the candidates, there was a realness and authenticity to them. And also, I think none of them spoke in language that we sometimes all get caught up on, and income distribution, that kind of stuff. Instead, was really literally talking in terms that people got, and about what was going on. A lot like you did in 2017. I mean, I really did think you were like one of the best I've ever seen at connecting with people really on the kitchen table issues. But it wasn't just talking about the kitchen table issues, but it was talking about it in a way that wasn't sort of high up in the air about economic theories and stuff, and about job creation, and instead like really putting it where people could see it, feel it, and understood what they were saying. That was clear in all those candidates.
Put it at the kitchen table. I mean, you're putting it there. And Joe and guys, and y'all were so much a part of that. But what's really been interesting for me is that all of the things that we're hearing, I say almost all of the things we're hearing about how to rebrand the Democratic Party, how to bring the party back. If you go back, if people had just looked at what we did in Alabama in 2017, it's the same thing people are talking about now. I mean, it is the same thing. To really ignore, of course, we were lucky. We had other people coming in to go after the opponent some, but to focus on those same economic, and remember, healthcare was a huge issue in 2017. That was the summer that John McCain famously gave a thumbs down. It was on everybody's mind. Healthcare premiums were on everybody's mind. That had to play into this too, and that is still going to be on people's mind a year from now.
So, Doug, what do you? I know you got some town hall thing with coming up. What are you doing right now? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
There's a couple of things. We got Cory Booker. Cory's coming in. Remember, Cory came in for us a couple of times during the race in 2017 and drew great crowds. We had a wonderful time. He's coming in Saturday, and we're gonna, I'm gonna have some marks and do a town hall. There's a ton of people that's already RSVP'd. I'll tell you one thing I'm working on, Joe, that you guys will be especially interested in. I'm doing some work now with the Progressive Policy Institute that's been around a long, long time. And we've got an advisory board doing what is known as the American Identity Project. David Brooks of the New York Times is a co-chair, Larry Summers. It's a stellar cast. And then there's me on the advisory board. But this is really going to look at what we've all talked about, not just pro-democracy, but what does it mean to be an American? I mean, quite frankly, I think it doesn't mean destroying the East Wing of the White House. There are things about that I think people have lost. So I'm doing that. And you know what? We've got elections coming up in Alabama in a year. And, who the hell knows what's going to happen and whose name might pop up in posters behind Alex over there or something like that. You never know what'll happen. But there is a lot going on, Joe. There's a lot of momentum, even in Alabama. People have a real hunger. We saw it in 2017. We could feel it in 2017, and you're beginning to feel it even in the South. That Georgia, Mississippi races, I think are. I don't want people to underestimate how important those races were in the South, in red states, because Georgia, despite what they did with Ossoff and Warnock, it's still a pretty red state. And Mississippi is as red as they come. But things they are changing.
Yeah, they are. And one thing we all know is we got a hell of a lot of work to do between now and November of next year. And a whole lot of surprises coming between now and next year, and we got to take advantage of them and do the work. Alex, you got anything you want to ring us out on before we?
Yeah, I got one more fact, because we could just sit here and read fun facts all night.
It was such a great night. Yeah.
The one analysis I would definitely shout out is Ron Brownstein, who's been on the pod before, friend of the show. His numbers are always he's where we got a lot of the Latino numbers from. But here's one for you. 13 statewide elections on Tuesday night. Democrats won all 13. That's 1 in Jersey, 3 in Virginia, 2 in Georgia, and then all the judges and retentions in Pennsylvania. And there was only one race that was in single digits. Every other one of them was a double-digit win. And those are not just in blue states. We're talking Virginia, Georgia, Pennsylvania, where there was a real worry in Pennsylvania that some of those judges might flip the other way. And I want to say the Republicans spent something like $15 million there. And the last thing I'd say, and this is for anyone who's looking at next year, over half the spending against Spanberger in Virginia was the trans attack. She came out and just dismantled it, and then immediately pivoted to what people actually were caring about, which was pricing, et cetera, affordability. And she won by double digits. So you will still see that same old attack again, but there is a way through it now. And I think that showed the path.
Go ahead, Joe.
The other thing I'd point out about New Jersey was I don't know how many multiple millions were spent banging the living daylights out of Democratic Socialist Mondami in New York media that was flooding into New Jersey, by the way. All those ads, I was up in New York for one night and it was unbelievable, the volume, but it didn't touch Mikey Sherrill at all. It didn't have any impact. And a lot of them were on all the the cultural attacks that trans that we saw on with Spanberger. People, I think there's a patriotic populism that we started to see last night. That channeling all that energy and disappointment and anger in a totally different direction. Hopefully, we see more of that going into 2026.
And Joe and Alex, I don't want to put a blanket on this. I want people to enjoy this week and whatever. But you said, Joe, we still got a lot of work to do. Yeah. I want folks to enjoy the week and enjoy the victory, but at the same time, we got to look forward in 12 months to that election and understand that in 26, with all of these races up and Republicans controlling legislatures, governors' races, governors' houses, election boards, National Guard that is likely to be placed at polling places, this is not going to be easy for the will of the people to prevail. And we got to be working on that as well. So that's why your comment, Joe, about we still have a lot of work to do is so spot on. We cannot let our foot off the gas because we got to win big enough to where they can't take it away from us.
Yep, and we gotta do it everywhere, not
Everywhere.
just the usual places. We really need to build stronger parties all over the country, and we need to recruit other candidates and get people in, and all of us have to do our part to help organize and help build as strong an effort as we can in 2026. So, Senator, thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening or watching that Trippi show. And check out Doug Jones' Substack at Doug Jones. And make sure you join us at sez.us, SEZ.us, a civil social network for real human beings where we can all gather and start to build this movement. This podcast will always be free and is part of Lincoln Square. Check out the latest at lincolnsquare.media. Also, if you're listening to this episode or watching it on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. And you can always send us a question to that Trippi show at gmail.com. But Alex is the one who's responsible for asking the questions. So if he doesn't get to them, you know who to blame. You can do that on the review on iTunes, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Senator.
Thanks.